Meeting. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our December meeting of the Ad Hoc Attendance Boundaries. This is a special meeting that we are calling so that we could get some participation from the committee members around our report that we were planning on presenting on the 4th, and we think more favorably we'll be ready on the 11th meeting. But this is a non-hearing of the public meeting. We're going to provide our summary and discuss amongst the committee some things that we're putting in our summary. You are more than welcome to listen and engage. Feel free to have a thought and send us an email. But this is actually just for the committee to publicly talk about what we are presenting in our summation and what we would be planning on presenting to the full board. My left and my right, do we need to introduce ourselves?
Eve Fulton, board member.
Carolyn Jones, board member. For 30 more days.
For there's what?
For 30 more days.
She's on the countdown. People don't pay her any attention. We've got her
It
here.
only counts half now.
So, Rob, I will send this to you. Put this on the screen. Pardon my delay, everybody. We're just moving a little slow today because it's raining out. And the committee members, we do have from administration.
Jeremy Gallagher, Chief Information Officer.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey.
And then we have our admin, Phyllis. And we're going to introduce her, although she doesn't have a voice right now.
Jen's here online.
Oh, Jen. Okay, hold on, Jen. Hold on. Yeah, let's do Jen is here. Jen, we can't see you, but we can hear you. We have our treasurer, Jen Wagner, who's online. Thank you, Jen. You actually already have access to it, Jen, the electronic file, the one that we're using.
I don't have it. What are you talking about?
It's yours, the one that you created. What did you call it?
Nothing. Don't worry about it.
No, I want you to have it. Okay, hold on. We're just experiencing some technical difficulties. One moment. So you go to your phone.
No, I'm okay. I'll find it. I know where it is. I'm confused about, we're pulling up the old one to look at this one? Okay.
We're pulling up this. This is what you were working on. If you go to your drive. And there, yep, I just asterisked it. And so that is this. Yeah, electronic. I just put the asterisk there so it would be at the front of everybody's stuff. Okay, Ms. Phyllis, can you share that with Rob? You're an editor. No, there's no PowerPoints. Yes, ma'am.
The date is still not computed.
For which part?
On April 25th.
We'll change that today. Thanks, Carol. All right, so that's it. I'm pulling it up. What are your thoughts? I just input the charge from the board in the first paragraph, and I copied the CPS mission and vision, goals, and guardrails. Any thoughts? Those are just directly from the slide.
Fine.
I think we should put the forecast. If we have to, we might as well put that in there.
Okay, so my question around forecast on page 2.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Well, it's on there. I didn't know if you all wanted it as the picture or do you want it as written? I don't have a summation. I only have the picture. So did you want
this written?
Okay, so I have to get a written forecast from administration. Okay. The consensus items, I just tried to summarize it. If you all could go through there and tell me your thoughts. I didn't think we wanted bullets. So I'm not married to it.
I was going to ask you that.
What?
Why, if it.
She wants bullets.
It's,
No, I'm asking, my suggestion, let me just say it this way.
okay,
My suggestion is that we keep those bulleted. I think it makes it a little more clear for people who are reading it, that they are distinctly its own bullet.
okay,
So-
instead of a paragraph?
Yeah.
I just thought it would kind of explain what we were thinking with that. We're on page 3, Rob. But if you all think that,
Probably.
taking it out and making them bullets, we do have them as bullets, so what you're wanting is no summation, just bullets, because each paragraph is the bullet.
I think she just wants a bullet by each paragraph.
Yeah.
She's not
bullet,
saying,
just to
she's
make
not-
it easier.
she's not saying individual bullets within each paragraph.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Each line here, the way it reads like a complete summary of things, which is fine. I'm not asking to change the wording. I'm saying just put the bullet right in front of each of them. So,
Okay,
yeah, I just think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if people think I'm wrong, I think it makes it easier to read it and concentrate and focus on that one bullet as opposed to focusing on all the information at once. Does that make sense?
does it make sense to me? It doesn't matter if it makes sense to me. It is what it is. It makes sense to me the way I did it. So I'm open to having us do. So what I'm hearing is, we would have, I just want to give you an example of what one of the items was. So, I'll just take each of those and make the first line the topic and then keep the words. Is that what you mean?
I just need this before this. I don't know why we're struggling with this. Let me put it in there, so maybe it's helpful. Just-
Each paragraph is a bullet.
That's what Yeah, I think we're saying,
Like
saying the
this.
same thing. Okay. Peter just died. Okay. Yes.
I said the first is great. On the second paragraph, I would add Woodford in with Pleasant Ridge and J.P. Parker and Silverton, because Woodford's the one that's losing its magnet status and will be part of the
second
redrawing.
bullet,
On
Yes,
Second
the second paragraph,
the
second bullet.
paragraph.
you would add.
Add Woodford School, because that, we've been talking about Woodford. That's why Miss Woodford was here a couple of times. And it's losing its magnet status.
Well, it's down in the paragraph, the third paragraph from the bottom. The board is not changing the boundary lines for Pleasant Ridge Montessori. The northeast side schools in question by previous board action are Pleasant Ridge, which is over in Rural Silverton and
Yes.
Woodford Magnets.
I agree
But-
with that. With what you're saying, Corinne, because when I redid all the when I looked at the consensus points, I tried to make it a little more concise because there was some redundancy. So if what Dr. Moffitt is reading addresses your concern, Eve, does
No,
it?
it does not, because that northeastern quarter includes Woodford. And Woodford moves from magnet status
Okay.
to neighborhood status. And remember, that's something the community wanted us to think about, is if they didn't want their kids to go to Pleasant Ridge, Montessori, could they go to the other schools? And I think I think Woodford was one of those schools, like Silverton and J.P. Parker.
But
So
then
I
you
would bundle them together.
Okay.
Just there, and repeat it down below. I'm happy that it's below.
So that's, thank you, Board Member Jones, for changing that. The update on the east side includes the schools, John P. Parker, Pleasant Ridge Montessori, Silverton, Woodford.
And Woodford.
That's okay, and Woodford.
Oh, Lord, am I editing for everybody?
No, I mean, I'm happy to.
Probably, you usually
are,
do.
You kind of are, but it's okay.
The committee also,
Is considering making adjustments in the northeastern section of the district that would impact these schools. Is that correct?
mhm.
Okay. The committee is also discussing the need for equitable programming across the corridors. There are 3 Montessori elementary schools and a feeder high school in the east, and 2 Montessori elementary schools and a feeder high school in the west. For equitable programming, there needs to be a third Montessori high school in Essential.
I think part of that is correct, but I
Okay.
think considering on the west, we now have 3 because they consider Parker Woods going to the west side. And on the east side, there's 3. There's 3. And then but we do need that third Montessori high school.
So I thought Parker Woods was in Essential.
It is, but we don't, but here's another thing we have to just, when we do our presentation, people have to understand that we've got our 3 quarters, I think we're committed to and makes sense, but you're still going to need to have 3 other things. You're still going to need citywide, and you're still going to need east and west. When you think in terms of whether it's magnets, like a Fairview is a citywide magnet, whereas the Montessoris that are on the east can only be the east. They might be beyond a particular corridor. You're going to be carrying forward what we've already had in the past, which is citywide, east and west. But now we've also added this layer of 3 quarters.
So hold on one second. Rob, can you go to page 12? Because I put the map in there on page 12. It's on page 12 for you all. So I just want us to have a visual of what we're talking about. I kept that map there so that
The
we
map
could
is great.
see.
That's the 3 quarters, right?
Okay. Yes.
But superimposed over that, you're still probably going to have the citywide and the east and the west. Whether you're talking about ultimately high schools or you're talking about the Montessoris.
Okay.
So that is what we've had over time. And we probably have to maintain that to a certain extent, because you're not going to be necessarily the 3 quarters. You're not going to have 3 Fairviews. You're not going to have 3 German language schools. You're going to have, because probably the magnet piece is part of that, because you're going to have some magnets left that are not Montessoris or whatever.
Do we need a paragraph for that?
My position, when you stick to a pair, my position is when we're presenting it to the board, they need to understand up front about the general recommendation around creating these corridors. This isn't going to make sense to them
I'm with you.
unless
They don't have
we
the vocabulary.
some explanation about what the broad scope recommendations are, which means creating these corridors and justifying that. And so, but anyway.
So what I'm hearing you add is that to that paragraph or an additional paragraph, we need to maintain citywide magnets.
Yes.
Is that what the simple
Yes.
part of the sentence? Okay.
Yes, just like, we say in the next paragraph about a K-12 in the central corridor. We probably aren't going to have a K-12 in the central corridor. We don't have enough schools, but you might have an east and a west, like you've got Riverview, which is, even though it's so under-enrolled, and Euler's sort of under-enrolled as well. But so yes, there has to be, I think, to Carolyn's point, there's going to have to be kind of a part of the presentation has to be a setup before we even share and go through the report, just like the recommendations and next steps kind of thing. There's you're setting the table.
So I just added to the bullet, Rob, I'm back on page, I'm back up at the top, page 3. And I'm adding, after the committee is also considering the need for K-12 school in the central corridor, there will be a need to maintain some citywide magnets like, or do you want me to not say it that way?
Citywide and east and west. Besides 3 corridors. Now that can be done earlier in the report.
So what do you want me to say here? In addition to the 3 corridor model, I'm trying to figure out how to put that in here. That there
Well,
will
it
be
should be
some.
it could be a separate consensus that we're recognizing that we're creating the 3 quarters, and we have to, like Carolyn says, explain that at the beginning. But that doesn't mean we're getting rid of east, west, or citywide, because that still is going to service the magnet piece, whether even if it's the language folks, east and west.
Oh, the citywide magnets that you're talking about, Fairview is one. What's another one?
SCPS.
SDPA,
That's not a magnet.
citywide schools.
And Walnut's not a magnet either. Those are exclusive admission. Instead, like if we were to keep Taft, you know. So again, whether you want to do it in this paragraph or you want to do the setup, I'm just trying to go through these paragraphs.
Do we have any other exclusive admission other than those two?
Spencer.
That's actually what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got Walnut and you've got SCPA and you've got Spencer.
We're saying exclusive admission.
Yeah, admission by test or audition or whatever.
All right, I just changed that there. All right.
Jeremy, are there any others that are?
No, those three.
Is that it? So we've got academic, super academic, and then the arts.
Equity could require the same type of programming across corridors within the district. The committee is looking at the boundary lines in the central and northeast corridors. They are also considering the need to redraw the attendance line on the west side. The serious overcrowding of West Side elementaries has not been addressed with the major redrawing of lines and the possible need for additional elementary seats. Got me when
No,
I'm on page 3.
that's an
I'm
important.
at the fourth bullet.
That's
the
a
fifth
critical
bullet.
one because that has to also be one of our next steps. But I would also, I don't know if Jeremy's had a chance to look at it, but I think I said the last meeting, I think I mentioned that you might have to add Mount Airy onto the west side instead of the central corridor in order to have enough schools to even redo the boundary lines. And maybe you don't have LEAP as a magnet, but instead you have it as a neighborhood school. So,
No, and pending some of where we go with this, I
You're gonna-
haven't,
it's
haven't
gonna-
looked at
but I
some
mean, that-
specifics yet.
but as long as I made that point, I think it might help. Because there's still a couple of schools on the west side that are under enrolled. I looked at those last night. There's like 3 or something versus 7.
That's true. Equity could, I'm on the fifth bullet, sixth bullet. At page 3, equity could require the same type of programming across corridors within the district. The committee is looking at the boundary lines on the central and northeast corridors. They are also considering the need to redraw the attendance lines on the west side. Did I repeat?
Yeah, you said it.
Okay, I'm sorry. The committee is also considering equitable marketing of school programming and consistent community engagement.
Is that another bullet or is that part of that paragraph?
It's the bullet.
Yeah, it's a separate.
Simi?
You know, could I add, think about that on the engagement and the messaging and programming? I would really like us to try to get the board to be exposed to the idea that we're really trying to change how the district is perceived. That it is not just a neighborhood or a magnet system. I keep saying that we're a district of multiple systems. And that will be so clear to people when they think about it, whether it's the language, which would be the international, or whether it's we have a preschool system, we have a Montessori system, we have a neighborhood system, we have an exclusive, whatever. And that's just a completely different way, because that would also get us back to this equity piece. Because no one thinks there's any equity if you only see this district in neighborhood or magnet. And that's how people perceived it for 25 years. And you're going to have to change. You're going to have to broaden the messaging, and it has to be authentic. And it is an authentic message of multiple systems.
I agree with you. Do we agree that that's a consensus item that we want to just say we want to reimagine the district in a system, in a district of systems? What I said is a district of systems.
And see, I see that when I always talk about broad scope, I think about that as being one of the overarching.
That's one of the biggies.
Okay.
It's huge.
It's big, so I see that as a separate thing that needs to be emphasized somewhere at the beginning.
It's
of
actually,
presentation.
it's under here. Well, I just said the committee is also considering the schools of choice at CPS and demographic equity. Do you want me to say it differently? Do you want me to take that out? What do you want me to do? That's a bullet. I don't agree. I agree with you. It's not strong enough, but what do you want me to say and where? I'm fine with it. Just tell me where to put it.
I think as we keep doing what we're doing to get through this page, I think separating, or making a separate list of what are the 6 giant things at the beginning, or 8 giant things at the beginning.
So let me ask this, and I'm not taking this personally, but I gave 5 recommendations in the last piece. Were those not as comprehensive as we needed? Did they meet what we're talking about?
This is your report.
It is not.
This is, I took this exactly from your report. So only thing I did was take the sections and summarize it. And I categorized it. So I don't know if maybe you've done the 2 different versions of this, because I have 3 files from you. And this is mine. All we did is cut and paste.
No.
If you want if you want to summarize it, I'm happy to do that. But I think that what we have here, I'd like us to just keep moving with.
We can't keep moving.
Okay.
But I am not going to sit here and agree that this is what, you may have worked from that document, but the formatting is different than what I present.
But formatting is, your information is the same. Formatting to me is bolding, all that other stuff. That stuff is
Okay.
last.
Well, it's not mine, but I'm good with going the way we're going. But I'm just
Okay, well, let's
saying,
keep
I mean,
going.
we're talking about how we want to present
We
this, and I'm
actually are
just
all
offering-
agreeing.
I think
I'm
we
just
are.
offering my
I think we are.
opinion about how it should be presented.
I'm gonna say that
I
we,
made a blank piece of paper that says big ideas, and then you had them of those several in yours, and we talked about them, and so far we've added like middle school is a big idea, right? And changing the messaging, changing the perception of the district, that's a big idea.
I'm just putting it here as number 1. The committee would like to have the district reimagined as a system of schools instead of neighborhood schools and magnets. Okay, let's keep going.
Next one.
We're down at the bottom. The board is not changing the boundary lines for Pleasant Ridge Montessori. The northeast side schools in question by previous board action are Pleasant Ridge Montessori, which is over-enrolled, Silverton and Woodford Magnets, which are under-enrolled, and John P. Parker School, Neighborhood School, which is perpetually competing with neighborhood charter schools. No?
No, I think that's good. Is that where we're gonna say that community suggestion about if the families didn't want them to go to Pleasant Ridge, they could go to some of the others, just as another line there?
Do you want to add that?
Well, it's one of those things that the actual, came from the community.
Mhm.
So I say cash in on that.
Okay. So the
And
community,
they've been asking for a number of years.
what would you like to say? How would you like to say it?
Based upon a community request, that in this cluster of schools in the Northeast, if someone lives within the PRM attendance boundaries, but does not want their student to go to Montessori, that they could have access to this cluster of neighborhood schools.
So I said, based upon community input, this cluster of schools would like to have expanded access
Yeah.
beyond.
PRN families.
Only option for neighborhood schools or neighborhood school. The committee is considering the transportation costs and savings with middle school options per corridor. They are also considering changing the attendance boundaries for the west, central, and east corridors. Finally, the committee is considering the under-enrollment and overcrowding at the schools per corridor. These are just the consensus, or no?
It's kind of a finding, yeah. Yeah, we found that right. There were facilities usage, I mean, we spent a lot of time on that. Jeremy's brought that to us, right? The
Oh, AWL.
facilities, capacity.
Thanks, Jen. Jen said, AWL is citywide.
Jen, is AMI, is that just east side?
It is as well.
See, the language schools, you see, the language schools like Fairview and then AMI or whatever, those have been citywide. Whether or not you want to keep them citywide, or whether they're an east and a west, you know, Robert's citywide too. All the language ones are citywide. Or is it specifically west?
Jen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think LEAP, all the foreign language schools are citywide, to my understanding.
Oh, what?
All the foreign.
Like LEAP,
Yeah,
AMI, AWL, Fairview.
yeah,
For some of these exception because it's not, it's not only.
oh,
They just speak Spanish?
No, it's an IB program, but I don't think they have that good. Hold on a second. I'm gonna check.
Okay.
okay, let's keep going.
Sorry, I put the space, it's got spacing in it now, so hold on one second. Sorry, Rob. So I just said, this was the historical context. I just titled it again. I don't care if we keep the title, but we had a big section from Eve and Dan that talked about the historical perspective. Did you want to keep that here? Did you want to not keep it here? I put it as section 2, historical context, to begin our work, but it doesn't have to stay there. And I just summarized it. Does that say what you want?
Again, I'm just gonna say what I said the other time about the quadrants were old. That needs to be corrected.
Okay.
The Meridian plan was only one part of the strategic plan. It only was about growth,
Okay.
period. But the quadrants predate us, right?
So should I take this
So-
part out? You want me to take that out?
Can I
Yes,
add
ma'am.
something in the document that I wrote? And I took it from what the note said. I went back to all of the notes. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullets that I gathered and put under the historical context. I didn't elaborate on them, but these are the things that we talked about. I'm at my old document.
I don't know which one.
So there were things, for me, this is just a personal preference.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
get away from saying things like, well, Dan Hoying reported to us this, that, and that. There were some very concrete things that brought us here. One is the Bronson versus Board of Education, 1973, right? There was a need to look at how our schools were structured. Well, and I don't know, I put a question mark by the ODE investigation. Was there some sort of ODE investigation?
Discipline.
That had to do with discipline? Okay. Then there was some policy implications discussed in student achievement policy as early as 2019. Then there was the Meridian Plan and the FMP process and the transportation inefficiencies, because the historical piece of it was that it started with discussion about the transportation inefficiencies. So
You're
how
talking
do we
about-
account?
Wait, hold on. What started about the transportation?
The planning around looking at boundaries,
This time?
the boundaries and looking at high schools of choice. Historical context.
Okay. So how about we do this? You write what you want to see under that section.
Under which
Just
section
what
are
the
you
section
at?
that you're on, you take that charge and you write it. You put it, you can copy and paste it, you can put it however you
Are
need to do
saying
it.
Under historical
I'm saying
context?
that's where you are and that's what you need to see it that way. I want you to put everything there. You can cut it and paste it, put everything there the way that you need to see it. whatever it is that you want to see there, that's going to be your responsibility.
Where do you want me to put it?
It's under historical context to begin our work. And I put it under district attendance boundary history on page 4, but
Okay.
that is now your charge to do. And the
Yes,
only thing,
ma'am.
because I'm not gonna keep going back and forth with it. It's giving me a headache, and I spent a lot of work on that, and that's how you need to see it. And I guarantee you, there are other people that need to see it that way too. So I'm gonna let you take that. I promise you, I don't have any.
I'm not gonna fight today about it, but you keep saying that this is your document. It is not my document. And I'm okay with it not being
Okay.
a document, but I'm also expressing my opinions about how the report, if
I
you
get
want
it.
this to be palatable to people, it has to make sense. And
Right.
it doesn't really, because it's not hitting the historical context early enough. It's not hitting
Okay.
the broad scope recommendations.
This is perfectly fine. I promise. Magnet schools came out of that. But I do remember, and this is my frustration, because there were meetings where it was said, we don't want all that information in there. That's too much. So I am a little confused, because I told you specifically that I needed the historical context because it was very, very useful to me. It would also be beneficial to other people. I think I want you to just take that. I promise you, I don't have any, I really just want us to move forward. And that is also the impetus for me saying we are not ready by the 4th because we still have much work to do. And I see final report draft. I see a whole bunch of different drafts, and I do see what you're talking about. So I want you to just take and own that section. And then when you finally get it input the way that you want it with the bullets or whatever, then just send us an email and we'll just, I don't have to put words there. I like the words, but if you want it to just be bullets, it's perfectly fine for me. What were you going to say, Board Member Bolton?
One of the things that I think, first of all, I think we can tell the president of the board that we're not going to be ready on the 4th. And that the board has some serious work that's even more time sensitive than ours, as long as we get this in by the 11th, right? The earlier the better, but I think we shouldn't confuse this report with the presentation. I think they're two very different things.
Okay.
Because the board is way over here. This is what do they call it? A fire hose coming at them. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the report has to be handed to them prior to the meeting, so they have some time. You know, there'd be at least a few people that get a kick out of us not being able to get to somebody the material in time or early. I'm usually one of the ones that wants it early and get upset if it's not. I just think that the report, we tell them that we're going to do our report on the 11th. That's when it's going to be ready. And we can do the other board work that's more time sensitive. But I think we should work our way through this report like we're doing and make those changes, and then kind of envision what that presentation looks like, which is the more of those broad strokes and vocabulary. And it may not be, these are the consensus, but here's next steps, or here's some things we're still talking about. You know, it's like when policy or another, it's usually policy that brings something back and says, we wanted some more input. We wanted to hear a little bit of dialogue. I mean, the administration's waiting to hear kind of where there's any kind of, the board, not just us three, they're waiting to see if this, you know, is well received. So I just think that that's what we get through this report and make our changes, but also think in terms of what a presentation looks like, not slides or whatever, but you know, something that you can do in an hour. You can't do this report and explain this whole report in an hour of the board with times for questions, but and then that's all I have to say. I just think there's two different things happening.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you. And I will say this, Carolyn, I'm looking here and I just asked Pat to print this out and bring it out because you have final report draft. I was working from your ad hoc attendance boundary chair report. So there's been a couple of different versions. And so,
You're all right.
we're just gonna, you're a paper person.
That's right, because it's
So-
all done electronically. I'm spared as the hard copy girl.
So can we move now to page 5 under phase 1? I listed phase 1. That was what the document I was working from. It had a phase 1. I just expanded it, and here I just said it kind of is redundant here, but it took each of those bullets and expanded it. So I didn't know if you wanted it to look like that. Are these the phases that we're in? This is the phase 1 report that Ben was talking about. We talked about implementing this in phases. So can you read that and tell me if you think those make sense? Do you want to take this section out? It was in one of these versions, so that's where I left it. Is that accurate for phase 1? Oh, I'm sorry, let me read it. Well, I think people can see it on the screen. But the only thing that we said for phase 1 was it includes recommendations to the board of information that we learned around the boundary lines for elementary magnet schools with historical contents in the various areas, magnet schools, programming, enrollment, and facilities by, and I didn't have a date. I saw December in there, but I took that out. Do you want to keep these bullets? I'm not a big bullet person, but I didn't know if you wanted to just say that one paragraph that's highlighted at the top where phase 1 is, or do you want to expand? So I'm going to say all of the ones that the bottom bullets are just the same as the top, just with expansions. So do you want to keep it that way, or do you just want one little paragraph?
So this is, phase 1 is what the committee was going to try to accomplish.
And present about, yes. So that's what this report should be about, is phase 1. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about a phase 2, because I don't know if we're going to have an ad hoc committee moving forward.
Yeah,
Do you
we
want to
will.
propose that as phase 2? I didn't know. I had that there, but I didn't know if that was, well, but I'm thinking, like, are we saying that these things should be done by December, or are we saying we're just going to report it by December? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I had December, but. So, again, do you all want to include phase 2? Do you want to say, hey, this is what we're doing? Phase 1 is at the top, and then phase 2 includes recommendation to continue the work of the committee. I didn't know what you all wanted there, so I just stopped.
Well, phase 1 is this whole page, right?
Yes, so phase 1, all of this stuff that are in the bullets where it says recommend, gather, have, determine, those are the exact same as what's underneath the other ones. It's just expanded. I didn't know if you wanted to expand them, or did you want to just make them a small little quick bullet? So I have them both there that way.
This is what we were trying to accomplish before we reported back to the board.
Mm-hmm.
So these 18 months have only been phase 1.
I think so. But do you disagree? I know you do. Go ahead.
Well, let me just say this. I don't want to be the person that holds up this process. I'm going to agree to do whatever the committee, in terms of majority, want to do. I absolutely have a whole different perspective about the work and the presentation. And I'm okay with this, but for me, when I think about phases, I think about all the very concrete things that we said in the consensus points. And I'm looking at it, the way I'm looking at it is, this committee wants to present something that the board can pretty much agree to. They may have questions or whatever, but it starts an action process.
Right.
And the action is what should be developed, in my opinion, in the phases. And this is fine. This is phase 1. But when I think about it taking 18 months to get to phase 1, then what is phase 2 and phase 3 going to look like? And so I I have just a different perspective. But again, like I said, I am going to agree to move, just for the sake of moving forward. I think we have to take what we have and present it, and I'm okay with that. We can tweak it a little bit, whatever. We don't have to make any major changes because the board will let us know whether or not it's acceptable to them or not. I just think, I just have a whole different way of looking at it, but I'm good. And I'm willing to move on with it.
Didn't you want to implement some of this in the next school year?
Yeah, I thought so.
That's the way I was looking at it. I was looking at it as phase one being sort of planning, and this speaks to that. But then phase two is what are the things that we're prioritizing that we want to see happen next year? Or what are the things we want to see in year two? Or what, you know, those kinds of things.
I think that means, to me, that means the next steps. That is phase one, is we did all this work that we were charged to do, and more than anybody thought we would be doing. But it's the way it worked.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so-
I'm sorry, guys.
So phase one was what we've done, but again, in our presentation, we are not going to present this report.
Yeah, I thought that the presentation, the report was the
For them to
written,
reason.
and then the
Sure.
reasoning, and then the presentation was just an explanation of that, and they can read it if they want to. But to your point with phases, I think we always see things a little differently, which is perfectly fine and normal on some levels. But I think that there are things that we're recommending to happen incrementally. I don't think that we can just draw boundary lines for the west side and open up middle schools just from here. I think it needs to be done over time. Are you suggesting that there not be any more ad hoc involvement? It's just like, hey, do this and go?
Well,
And it's not wrong. I just
I
don't
don't
know.
know that I'm suggesting that, but the original charge was to create an ad hoc committee to review boundary lines. That was the original charge. So, and that's shortened version.
Mhm.
Okay. When you create an ad hoc committee, ad hocs don't live on forever. They have a very clear and distinct time frame. And I think nobody said this, but in my head, I'm thinking that the ad hoc committee would come up with recommendations for how we move forward within 6 months. That's what I thought. But it took 18 months instead. So to say, I can't say that I feel like ad hoc should continue. I won't be here. I think I have to go with what the group says. But, we're talking something different. We're talking about an extensive amount of time. And if that's what we're talking about, then this makes perfect sense to me.
Okay, so can I just ask, and I feel like I'm getting ready to go slightly down a rabbit hole, but I will pull back, I promise. In your world, based on what you just described, and an ad hoc only taken 6 months and we've taken 18, we've come up with these recommendations. What would be your next steps?
Well, the recommendations are, the next step, first of all, is present the broad scope recommendations to the board.
Okay.
Decide, we need to do this cost analysis, right? We haven't done that yet. So some of the next steps will be to do the cost analysis. We need to look at all of these factors that are on here, and this looks like the Jen, I think, did this. There are questions on here, and we have to figure out like what's the basis for these questions and how do we proceed. There's a lot of meat in here, and I'm even wondering, if this is just the first phase, then why do we have consensus points in here? I don't know. I'm totally confused, but it's just me.
First of all, there's not one thing that we've talked about that's incremental. Every single thing that we are recommending is huge. It's completely huge. It's completely huge.
And can I ask you about is it all or nothing? Is it all?
Almost.
Okay, and see
But
that.
well, let me finish what I was saying. It's all huge. it also needs to happen if we want the district to survive and thrive. It has to happen in the next 2 friggin' years. It's not 5 years, it's not 4 years. A third of the things are in here were proposed 5, 4, 3 years ago. And no action took place. And I refuse to sit by and have that happen again. So I think you have to put a time frame that over the 2 years, we need certain things to happen.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So if our recommendation is that this is all or nothing, it is the recommendations are all or nothing. The board needs to know that. And then the next step would be to figure out, well, where are the priorities? What can we do in 1 year? What can we do in 2 years? How are we going to fund it? You know, those are the kinds of things that I thought was going in the plan.
Yeah, and that certainly that's what it is, because to implement it, what I want to know, and what I think what the administration may want to know, maybe I'm wrong, they first and foremost want to see some overall thing that is the result or the work product from the committee. So they want to see that. Then they want to see what we we've agreed to or think about or recommend. And we have to see if there's support from the wider board on some of these things, the big things, not every individual school. So we have to make a presentation. I have to give them this report so they can study it and think about it. But then we have to frame our presentation around the end product of board. Shall we continue? Is there anything here that is stopping us? And very frankly, the administration's not going to have a veto on this. All right.
Well,
everybody will have a veto. It'll be a combined veto that we can't do this fast, or we can't do that, or whatever. So, but we have to get the board, and I think it has to be over the next 2 years. There's things in here that have to happen next year, and there are things that have to be prepared. And
at what point? I'm sorry, but what point do we share with the board what the suggestions are for how this gets phased in?
Well, I think the administration probably will be able to do the more specific phase in, but the things that we prioritize.
Yes. Yeah.
We can be sharing. These are things that we think need to happen now and could happen now. And we want the administration to make those happen now.
Okay. So for clarification, I need to ask, so what you're seeing in this report is that this is just the first step in sharing with the board what our work has been for 18 months, because it doesn't list priorities or anything. It has a whole bunch of consensus points.
I think the presentation is that. That's why it would be the 11th to do we could be working on what the presentation looks like, and it's all the big ideas. So there's big discussion and big embrace or rejection. I don't know, some board members are like, no, we're not going to do that.
Okay, well, I say whatever. I mean, like I said, I'll move forward.
So I thought that it maybe, and I'm just sitting here listening to you two, which has been for the past 18 months, where it's kind of a back and forth. You're on one spectrum, he's on another spectrum.
And you're in a different spectrum. So move yourself out of
No. I'm not saying that I'm not in a different spectrum. We have done good work, but I do think that my impression when I went back through here was that this needed to also drive some of the budgetary decisions that were going to be made. So when I said, hey, this is phase, I was leaving this open for you all to say, what do you want us to do next? What is the expectation for administration moving forward? I thought that our expectation is that they do the cost analysis and that they come back to us with some recommendations on what does a middle school look like for staffing based on what we were saying. Hey, these are what we're thinking, but maybe they don't work. But that should be in a phase 2 that they're coming back to tell us, hey, we did the cost analysis and this is actually what we found. So I thought that there would be a phase 2 because everything cannot be implemented next year. Some things can. I don't even think we should do all middle schools next year. I think it should be, we try it in one corridor or whatever, and then we see what works, what didn't work, and we see how that impacts transportation. But I did see it being having some continuity around the Bramble. What are we going to suggest that be? How is that going to impact that entire corridor? Those are the things that I thought we were going to be looking at. So I'm not looking at time on 18 months. You look at time like it took us 18 months to get here. It can't take us that moving forward, and it shouldn't, because we have definitive things that we're asking them to look at. But I thought that the ad hoc committee, or maybe this committee needs to sunset and then it's a different charge. If that's what we want to do, that's fine too. But I think that there should be something more for phases. So that was just me, but if you all disagree, that's fine.
I don't care how long it lasts, or if there's an ad hoc or not an ad hoc or whatever. Right now, it would seem to me that, like in any other board work, the committee is bringing back certain recommendations. We are validating how we made those recommendations by proving to them the work that has been done by the administration, by us, by the community, whoever. And we have these recommendations, and we're going to ask the board, are you interested in these things that we've come up with? Because I think the administration has to know if the board is interested in some of this stuff. And then what I would say is that there, besides the next steps, we also have to have a thing for the administration. We also now need to know this from them. I mean, whether it's something as simple as whether there are preschool deserts or not preschool deserts, or whether or not how transportation changes, or if you get rid of 3 magnets, how does that affect any change? And how does staffing work? I mean, we're obviously not ready for December 4th, but we have another priority that's just as critical and time sensitive. So the 11th, I think we should finish the report that's written and react and finish it. And then I think we need to work on our vision of what the presentation would look like.
I agree. So my question is still unanswered. For this phase section, are you okay with what's at the top, or would you like to have phase 2 added? Would you like to make a suggestion, write down the phases there, or just leave it as this is phase 1 and that's it?
We won't know about phase 2. Phase 2 would be additional information needed
To implement
to
this
answer
stuff?
the questions that are out there. I mean,
Okay.
the phase 2 would be, what are the remaining questions that we've not been able to answer because we don't know the information? So that's a short one. That's a short phase. These are the things we still need to know. We're still making these recommendations, and these are the big ideas, and we think there's a very finite timeline to this. But the next phase is, these are the questions that we've not yet answered or had answered, or questions that we didn't even know to ask. Like the administration's asking certain questions.
Like these.
Exactly. So phase 2 is this very short period of time where the questions that need to be answered get answered or asked or answered. More information that we need, more consideration, and then phase 3 is probably determining, it would seem to me, is the cost analysis of some of the things that we're.
Phase 1, phase 2, what
be
Ben
part of that,
suggested,
yeah.
I was going to say, is that this is our first report, but then we would come back after we've given this to administration, looked at some of the suggestions with regard to cost analysis, and then we would make a determination in January or February, like, hey, this is where the budget is, this is how transportation would be impacted, and this is what we're recommending.
There's also a parallel thing happening here, is that regardless of ad hoc, or because of ad hoc or whatever, there's a parallel budget development process that is not necessarily, we're going to see how much a middle school costs. That's one part of ad hoc, but this other transportation or some of the staffing, those begin to be those budget, and that's a different timeline than maybe we have here.
In the budget presentation.
We're making this an awful lot harder than it really is.
Well, I also was a little confused, and I put this in an email. I don't know if anybody read it, but I thought we were delaying the magnet sign-up process.
Yes.
We didn't. We just recently stopped it, but we had advertised that it was starting in December.
Well, it got delayed, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think it did. Well,
It's on now.
it was supposed to. You listen to the commercials, it's still saying December. But anyway, my point is, I thought that we were going to take some of the suggestions from here,
Mhm.
and that included magnet.
Yes.
So again, I thought that this had immediate implication, the immediate necessity to
Yes.
implement some of these things immediately, moving forward. Middle schools is one, because I think that's a big one, and obviously I'm for that, but transportation is impacted, staffing is impacted, signups for staff have said, like, hey, what are you all gonna do to my school? Because we gotta sign up for next year. So I thought this would potentially be in phases. Again, I can just put, for phase 2, I said implementation of phase 1 consensus items, and then what else did you say?
Asking and answering with questions that still need to be asked and answered.
Ad hoc would do that?
Well, I think the board's gonna do that, and
Okay.
ad hoc will be doing it too, as we listen to the board. And the administration's coming up with asks and whatever, like they wanna know how long are you grandfathering something? And that's something that Jen keeps mentioning, is it gonna be,
Mhm.
a lifelong, for offspring gets it or something, and there's a legacy to grandfathering.
And then phase 3, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. That there are,
My grandchildren.
Because we also have policy implications.
yeah, that's exactly what
Any
my question
policy.
was. There are
That's
policy
good.
implications, so there needs to
That's the
be some,
phase 2,
yeah.
the
that needs
questions
to
and
be-
answers.
Yeah,
Policy review but that has to be done in only in weeks.
okay, well,
Now, would that be this committee? I mean, this ad hoc, or would it be, we sunset and then we start all over? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well, one person isn't gonna be here for sure.
Well, we got a replacement for her. Do we have to come back
Nobody in
to?
their right mind will wanna join
I
us.
would, they probably
You
wouldn't.
may
Like,
not
oh my God, if
We
she
may
watches the
not wanna
meeting,
stay.
she's about to jet.
That's it. Carolyn, you
the
get
board
to,
has to appoint that person or somebody, a volunteer, but I wouldn't suggest doing that to Kendra Matt.
no.
She might be more amenable, like, whatever you guys say. And then it's just
She
what
might
we
be the
do.
balance for all the
Yeah.
craziness that goes on.
I don't know. Although this has been a fun run with you.
It's been fun. It's always fun.
It's definitely put a couple gray hairs up here, but it's been fun.
Can I say this
Uh-oh.
in short? No. But we have 3 very distinct styles.
Yeah.
We can't even get a report.
Everybody's digging hard. Everybody's hard because we see things differently. And then I'm going to be quiet. I understand and appreciate the different styles. I really do. But then ultimately we have to figure out, well, what's in the best interest of this as we move forward. How are we going to get the board invested in it, which means we might not get what we want. Eve has all this stuff in her head, and if she wrote it all on paper, it would be a 100-page document.
I've read it.
Okay.
I sit here and watch it review, and you agree on things much more than you.
I think so too. I think so too. I think so.
Kind of fun.
It really is a little comical, if we were to, if it.
We all just need a good spanking and let's move on.
No, the good thing is we represent the community, and the community of Cincinnati, 91 square miles is our district. It's not uniform.
Say something?
And this is
No.
this is not
That's just for you to-
easy.
I just said that. That was,
CPO is on the line.
see,
Just
that's age, I tell you. Just listening to our banter. Okay, so do you have anything for phase 3? I'm typing as you speak. Phase
Yeah.
3? What would phase 3 be?
Implementation in
that's
the
exactly what I was
FY
gonna say.
25 budget and staffing.
And in what phase do we talk about where the money's going to come from?
That's the budget process.
2024-25 budget? Is
That's
that
the
what-
second phase.
The FY25 budget is phase 3. That's where you figure you have the money you don't. You have
Okay.
to cut stuff to do this stuff. This
Okay.
is not all gonna be savings. This is gonna be additional costs.
Okay,
Some of it could be. Well, I don't know. We don't know. I'm going to say we don't know because I don't want, especially with our friends, listen, I don't want anybody to be like, oh, they're talking about cutting
Cutting,
stuff.
yeah.
So we don't know because we've not done the cost analysis of it. We haven't had that piece.
And you are correct, and the cost analysis will drive that decision.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what can be done this year versus what can be
Right.
done the following year.
All right. So do you all want me to
So
just,
that's phase 3 is the budget. FY25.
I put that up there. Are we just, then I'll just delete this, the bulleted. I kept the bullet because some people like bullets like Carolyn, and I thought maybe you wanted to see them that way.
Well, my blood pressure's still good, so we're good.
My blood pressure is high. Fooling with y'all.
Both Carolyn's like,
What'd you say?
I said both Carolyn's.
Gosh.
Maybe it's a
I think they're trying to drive
Are
me
you a
crazy.
Virgo?
Oh.
Yeah, fish.
Pray for me out there. Okay, so page 6. Actually, we don't have that many more pages off of my thing. Carolyn, you're gonna do the historical perspective. I got you on that. I put this in here under, because Eve had previous considerations. I did not know if you all wanted to list those that were continuing prior to this ad hoc committee, and I explained them here. Or do you want to take it out? That you didn't have that in your section, so I just made it a section so that people could see this was actually stuff that was carried over.
I had a piece of it. The can, like
Okay.
I did list about the cans and
I think it should be.
firefighter.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I don't have.
Because
any issue.
it's not that, I don't want people to think like we just woke up one day and decided to do all this. This has been ongoing.
Okay.
So I think that's a good page.
Did you all read it? We'll just read it and make sure, I mean, I'll read it really quick. The previous board has taken action on several schools in the northeast side, including PRM, Silverton, Woodford, and JPP. PRM is an over-enrolled neighborhood school, while Silverton and Woodford are under-enrolled magnets. Should I take that out because they're not really magnets? Oh, well, never mind.
Well, that's why they're no longer magnets, is they were under-enrolled.
Make that check for
I mean,
inflation.
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, just real quick for clarity, are we talking about intention of what the board actions previously were, or what the current status is in reality? So like Woodford is currently still a magnet as of today. It has magnet
Mm.
enrollment. It's no
Board's
longer a
intention
pedagog. Okay,
Was to
That it would not
eliminate it
be.
as a magnet.
Yes.
And I think that's
Okay.
also the consensus now. Just like I think there's a consensus to get rid of some more magnets.
So JP Parker is a neighborhood school that is perpetually competing with neighboring charter schools. 2, district action regarding the northeast side. I'm on page 6.
That's why you need bullets, because I can't
Right here.
find it. Okay. All right.
Previous board action.
Okay.
She's telling her age here. The previous board has taken action on several schools. Okay, I read that. District action regarding the northeast side. The district has taken action to address the overcrowding at PRM by expanding the school and keeping the boundary attendance lines the same. The district has also dropped Padilla from Silverton, Woodford, and Schroeder and moved Silverton and Woodford to neighborhood schools.
Not Woodford though, right? Is Woodford still Padilla?
no, it is not
It's
Padilla.
not Padilla.
Okay, gotcha.
But it is a neighborhood school, right?
It is a magnet school.
It's a magnet
It is
now,
not a
with
neighborhood.
still the transportation happening, but for next year, it's my understanding is that the hurricanes, maybe I was wrong.
I don't believe there has been a confirmed action as to what the status of Woodford will be for next year.
And so we
So
need
should
to
I
say
take that out? What should you say?
It's the board's intention to end that Padilla, and then you stop, if you don't have a program, you're not a magnet. I mean, what's a magnet? if
But
there's no program?
what this says, I think should stay. We dropped the Padilla status from Woodford. In
That's
somewhere else, in whatever
Yeah, sure.
there needs to be a statement, if that's in fact what the action is gonna be, because that's still undecided, right?
Correct.
So it doesn't have to be in here.
But this is actually the section on previous considerations. So
I
this
know,
is,
that's what I'm
no,
agreeing
you're,
with.
no, yeah, I'm saying, so you're right by saying like this is what they
It's the
wanted to
intention.
do. So district action regarding the west side, the district has taken action to address the growing immigrant population and enrollment on the west side by expanding capacity for the popular Montessori choice. The district has also moved Mercy to Gamble and freed up Little Gamble for Montessori elementary seats. The district has, the district, that wasn't me. The district has also created LEAP as a magnet. However, the serious overcrowding of West Side elementaries has not been addressed with the major redrawing of lines and the possible need for additional elementary seats. Can we put a date on this, Eve? Do you know, 2022? What was the year of that? Can we just
Which
say
one?
for this section, board considerations and actions considered by previous ad hoc committee? What was the date on that? Was
I'm
it?
sure we could find it.
I'm just
We have
thinking.
to dig.
Well, I'm just thinking that might help people put context to like in 2021 or 2019, they thought this.
Well, when we bought Mercy. Yeah, it's
I don't
about,
remember.
18.
it's when we bought Mercy, we knew we needed the additional Montessori high school, and we did all that engagement as to how to use
So
it.
we'll add I'm just gonna put here add a year as a comment. Maybe we'll figure out the year.
Yeah, sounds good.
2018 is when we bought Mercy.
Okay.
Thank you. So was,
Yeah. always
You're
forget
right.
that Jen is still
You got
there.
that
Can we get-
Snickers bar.
can we get Jen on the screen? Rob?
No,
Can
we
we?
don't want me on the screen.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Was the bullet one where that we talked about Can's boundary line, was Hyde Park's boundaries changed as well?
When we created Hyde Park, yes, because Hyde Park was Hyde Park, but it
And
was
we-
so lacking in diversity.
And we expanded the
added-
bound, so we should add Hyde Park to that? To that first one? the
Yeah, but
proposed-
Hyde Park preceded,
It did.
chronologically preceded
preceded
the
Cairns.
North, the
Yeah.
Cairns thing.
So do I put that in here or no?
Should we put it in
Sure.
here? Yeah.
So what would you say?
Chronologically, I'm sure it's before the Cairns thing,
Yeah.
because I do
I
think,
think you can put it like where it says after the first sentence, then you can add a sentence that says Hyde Park, boundaries were expanded. How do we, I think it's important to say something about it as an equity, I don't know, equity. I don't know. what to
in
say.
the interest of diversity.
In the interest of diversity,
Okay.
that makes sense, thank you.
No, you are perfectly fine. Hey, Rob, can you go up just a little bit? In the interest of diversity, Hyde Park boundaries were expanded. What?
And
Y'all were here.
I don't know, remember when, it was, do you remember when?
So just what happened? We're
10
expanded
years ago.
to include.
It had to be.
So
Dr.
what would you just say? Yes, ma'am.
So Hyde Park boundaries weren't expanded, they were redrawn, they were recreated because we had closed Hyde Park and then we reopened Hyde Park as a new school
Okay.
after the FMP. I don't remember what year. Jeremy, you might be able to tell when they enrollment started to grow.
But Jen, we did specifically add
Yes, we took
beyond the,
right. We took some streets from Evanston and Riverview East and maybe Parker and Kilgore because yeah,
Was Oakley involved in that?
I think so, but I just don't remember the details. It was so long ago.
2011. 2011, potentially?
Yeah.
We can approximately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first year that we have record back of their having a 3rd through 6th grade. Then 2012 is when it went preschool through 6th. So it would have been between those 2 years would be my guess.
Right, and then they probably got tweaked when Spencer was created because we started the gifted program at Hyde Park, and then it shifted to Spencer.
I remember
So
that.
I came on board in 2016 and Hyde Park, that was done.
Yep.
So it had to be before that.
Okay. So I just said 2011 to 12.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to say, You said put that before cans, but I'm gonna move it down here under previous board action.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Okay. Recommendations. Now, this is page 7. I summarized it, but I'm getting the feeling that we want bullets. So,
We want numbers under recommendation.
oh, okay. You know what? That's a good idea too. And I put, this is a summation. Do you want bullets? I put that over here in my comments. But, do you want to, I was going to say, do you want us to prioritize them? So let's go through here and prioritize what we think should happen. Do you want to do like school year? Like in 2024, or do you want to recommend like, hey, a cost analysis should be done? Or do you just want to stick with what the end result should be? I did not know. That's why I did not put.
Well, I'm not altogether sure. I think the first thing is to say whether or not these are all of the recommendations.
Okay, we can
I think
add.
there might be other recommendations or a list of other things to consider.
Okay,
Because these recommendations kind of come out of the consensus piece or whatever, but,
what do you want me to type? I'm open.
And see, I see it differently. I see it framed or structured differently.
Okay,
I see 3 to 5 major overarching recommendations, and under each recommendation are proposed action. That's sexy.
it sounds sexy, but to me, it's still the same thing. It's you just categorize it so you can see it better in 3 themes, but the work isn't any different. But I'm with you, so let's go. As your parting gift, I'm going to do this the way you want to be done. Yeah, sure, I'm fine with that. Let me cut and paste. Let me do this. I'm going to, because I pulled yours up, like your number 2 or 3
Okay,
document.
look
Here you
at
go.
My number 1.
Okay, I'm gonna put this here. I'm just gonna cut and paste.
Okay. And it's broad scope, and it includes all the consensus points that relate to that.
So now, okay, so what you're suggesting, I'm gonna put it here. Oh, everybody should see it. Me moving it at the same time. Okay. Redesign a system of schools with 3 geographic corridors aligned in neighborhood boundaries based on capacity, enrollment, and attendance. This is what you have, hyperlink corridor designations, enrollment capacity. And what you're saying is basically already there, but you want it to be in a bullet. Because it's basically the same. I didn't take out anything. I just rearranged it. But you want me to you want it in a bullet? Is that what you wanted in a bullet?
Well,
Tell me.
No, I mean, I think the recommendations should be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we have to decide on. I think the context. Well, let me ask this question: is number 1 an acceptable is that one of the recommendations that we're trying to implement? Is it? Are people in agreement with that? One of the things we
I
said
don't have a
earlier.
disagreement with any of these that are, I just know that there are additional recommendations.
Okay, so the question, when I put this in here, it was based on our conversation we had early on. The very first decision that we made almost was to redesign the district within corridors.
Yes,
So that
Yes.
should be a recommendation, right?
yes.
Okay,
I don't disagree with you.
yeah.
I'm saying though, what you said redesign a system of schools. So we're saying we want the district to be reimagined in a system of schools.
We can say redesign, reimagine, reconstruct, whatever sounds sexy to you. I don't
Okay.
know. So, but that's a question. We don't have to well, maybe we do need to make that.
Yeah, we need to discuss it. We're not gonna leave without
But
discussing
what
it.
this
Get on our-
does, it includes the terminology that he's referring to, system of schools. It includes the quarters 3, it includes alignment with neighborhood boundaries, and it also gives a support
I
based on
see what you're
capacity,
saying.
enrollment, and
I
attendance.
see what you're saying, the big thing, and then
Yeah,
these smaller recommendations are to achieve the larger.
which are the consensus points. See, that's the way I didn't separate, I didn't pull out the consensus. I took all the consensus points and I read them and I said, this falls under recommendation 1.
Because that's how you see it.
That's
And that's,
how I
and that's,
see it.
I mean, it's perfectly fine, but I just want to be very clear.
Yeah.
We see it slightly differently, but we're gonna move.
Okay, now, recommendation 2, analyze and strengthen program focus to achieve equitable accessibility within each corridor. We talked about program equity being one of the things we wanted to make sure that we achieved.
Mm-hmm.
The 3rd recommendation was create improved ease of access that provides transportation within each corridor, because resulting in reduced transportation costs. That's the whole purpose we started looking at boundaries. Or establish a system continuum across all corridors that allow for creation of middle schools. And then 5, reevaluate policy procedures regarding high school choice. That one probably needs to be checked. And I'm not saying you have to take these verbatim. I'm just saying those, in my opinion, were broad based. And what we needed to, what I was suggesting is that you do broad scope recommendations, and then under each, you add your consensus points where there are suggested or recommended actions.
All right, Carolyn. There, it's fixed. Now, next what? What do we need to put in there? And I'm gonna give you the charge with writing. Is this what you want underneath there? Let's go through here and see where we need to make adjustments. Redesign a system of schools with 3 geographic corridors aligned to neighborhood boundaries based on capacity, enrollment, and attendance. It's on the screen.
Well, the thing that isn't included there is the program audit, meaning the corridors in some way, shape, or form offer equitable access to programming.
What are you saying? What did you say? I mean, what are you saying?
The corridors, we're trying to have equitable access to programming. People, and so whether you live in the east or the west, you're going to have similar choice for smorgasbord. Because programming also determines.
So you're stating the justification for it, which I think is important.
Well, yeah, the justification. Well, you know, I think it's also the we might have to. For example, there needs to be IB on the east side, as Laura had suggested, just as we have IB on the west side. I mean, so there's some programming work that has to be done. I know the superintendent's concerned about the expensive IB, but.
So can we, for the sake of it, can we just add, like right under the highlighted, the red, can we just put the word justification and or support or whatever, rationale or whatever?
I don't know.
No, I don't think that says that.
No, it doesn't say it.
No, I'm saying I don't think that recommendation number 1 speaks to what she's talking about at all.
The second one does.
Yes. So, okay, let me just say this, because I don't like this, and I'm trying my hardest to kind of wrap around it, because I don't think that I agree with themes. I don't think it gives administration or the board any real direction on what it is we've learned that we want them to do. I do agree with the themes, saying, yeah, you know, analyze and strengthen program focus to achieve. What do you want me to do? What is that? What does that look like?
But the consensus points that you wrote, that you did on here, actually explain it. You have it right there, what we're asking for.
Yes, as a bullet, but I think I'm looking for more direction, and it speaks that you don't like that direction. You think that that's getting into the weeds, and I don't. I think we need to give direction on what we've seen to come up with that theme, and that's where, when we're talking about redesign a system of schools with 3 geographic corridors, what does that mean?
It means what we said in the consensus point. It is the information that we all were talking about, and what Eve speaks to. She fluently speaks about it all the time. It's the details of what all of that means.
So it's not the details, because the first bullet, it says update on East Side, and it lists the schools. What about that? What about that? What are you telling me?
Well, is it in here?
Yeah, no, all I'm saying is, according to your bullet, what is it about update on boundary lines for North Central schools? What do you want me to do with that? What did you find with that needs to be changed? That's all I'm saying to you. Yes, it needs to have some direction based on what we've seen, and because all you're doing is programming across corridors. Okay, there are 3 Montessori elements and a feeder high school. What do you want me to do with that? What do you want me to do with that?
Hold on. A lot of what you're speaking to, which I think, or at least what I think, are in the findings. And I'm looking at the old document.
Look at central and northeast boundary lines. Look at them for what? You need to look at attendance lines on the west side to do what?
We can write it whatever. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Well, you got 33 days or
No,
35 days to do it a little bit longer.
But
Because we've done this, we put the framework in so that you see it the way that you need to see it. I'm just suggesting to
we
you,
can do it whatever way makes sense, that we need to be able to say something to the full board. Doesn't matter to me,
okay.
because they're going to be the ones to make the decision about.
So I put these in here as 6 themes. Can you all review and look and see if those are the themes that we want? And then we can go in and massage it, bullet it, or whatever. But can you look at the red themes right here. I just make sure that those themes are they got renumbered. So I thought there were 5, but for some reason
There's 6. Somebody read.
correct. Number 2 is analyze and strengthen program focus to achieve equitable access within each corridor. Number 3 is create improved ease of access that provides transportation within each corridor, resulting in reduced transportation costs across the district. Number 4, create improved ease of access that provides okay, I think I just repeated it. My apologies. You're absolutely
there are
right.
6 that are in red from my document.
There's 6 of them?
Yeah.
I think it's repeated. Maybe, let me look and see what number 4 is. Hold on. Number 4 should be establish a system continuum across all quarters that allow for creation.
Which document are you reading from?
Your original one, this one. And it says
4 is create improved access that provide transportation within each corridor, resulting in reduced transportation costs across the district.
it's number 3 on here. That's the one that's printed out.
This is. Okay, hold on. I'm looking.
Now, the other question is, do you want to prioritize these?
No.
No? Okay.
If we're not careful, the report's gonna kill the whole effort. I'm just telling you right
No,
now.
I get it.
The report is gonna kill what it is we're trying to get accomplished.
At this point, I don't know what we're trying to get accomplished.
I'll go on for 15 minutes if you want me to do it, but you know very well what you want to.
I was gonna say,
You listed them.
You
You know what we're trying to accomplish.
I know.
we're not gonna get in our fields. I'm not in my fields.
But we're talking about how we want to present this to the board, and all three of us have very different ideas about that.
No, what we're talking about is the report. We haven't even talked about the presentation yet, except for the fact that we know what we want to say and what we don't. This is the report. This is the written summation of what we want them to have. And the presentation, I think, should be slightly different. We've already agreed to that. This is just the meat of it. So we can all agree. I'm not in my feels.
You're not in what?
I'm not in my feelings.
Oh, well, I
I'm not in
am.
my
I'm
feels.
not gonna lie, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I agree to present it however we want to present it. But that is not my understanding of what we were trying to do. So I'm lost with that. That's just me. But we can present, if what we want to present lies in this document, then I will go with that and we'll support it 100%. But I think we're all on different planes.
No, an hour and a half ago, we all agreed that there's this report, and then the presentation has to be the big
We just
stuff.
agreed to that today.
Yes, an hour and a half ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was still working on my fish puzzle, we did that. So I remember that. And so right now we're trying to get the report to do part of that justification, substantiation, where we've been, how we got here. That's what the report is.
That's
But the
fine.
presentation is these big themes and what we've found, and we're taking it to get the sense of what the board is interested in.
Mhm.
Right? That's it.
Yes, that's what I understood.
And then
too.
when the boards express an interest, then that helps us express to the administration what it is that they need to do. But we'll have to have we'll have to sort of come together a little bit, agree to what our presentation looks like.
Okay, let's,
The presentation on the 11th.
Hopefully instead of next Monday, yeah. And the report will go to people days before the 11th so they can look at it.
So should the report, the number one, the bullet point, instead of this paragraph, just say updating boundary lines?
I don't
And
know.
then the presentation, explain what
This
that
is,
means?
this is the classic writings by committee, and which we must do, and it's good, and how you get the multiple perspectives. But it
I
is-
would say,
it's sausage making.
let's just make it, the sausage making is what's creating problems for me.
Yeah.
I would say, let's go with the one that Dr. Moffitt.
no, we're already past that because I've merged them
can I
together.
finish? Can I finish?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's do it, except for adding the bullets to structure it a little differently, and the minor. So what I'm hearing is that we don't want to put anything. I heard Eve suggest the phases, so we need to add that. But let's not make any major changes around, what am I thinking of? Like you said, what you said, Dr. Moffitt, is that the recommendations that you included those. If they're the same as what's in here already, then let's not change it. I think what I'm having problems with is the way it's structured. And I can live with it as long as if the content's the same, then I'm fine with it.
I'm going to move on to page 9. We'll work on the recommendations piece. Do you all want to have this? I had it as a findings in a section. It may not been a findings. I think Carolyn, on yours, you have it as summary, closings, next steps. I'm happy to just take this out because I didn't know exactly where we wanted to go with findings, if we wanted to say more, but we did have a significant number of things underneath there that I wanted to ensure were maintained. So,
I did have a section on findings.
okay.
You know, yes, and I think what the printout, not printout, but send, in whatever version or form our report is now at the end of this meeting. And then we take that, and this is the structure. And if there are things to add or to classify differently, do we just tell you?
You can actually, everybody has access to this,
Okay,
so
we can
you can
do
just
that.
go in there and add it and massage it or whatever. And that's perfectly fine. No, we're not going to upload this to Board Docs because it is not ready.
No.
So to take the pressure off of our admin and Rob, we're not going to do that at this present time.
We do have
It's not
Probably
ready.
driving our admin nuts. Are you going there?
They're driving me nuts, so I can ensure.
Yourself out of
I'm not, listen, I am not a victim, but I actually provide our admin with chocolate to compensate for my craziness. So, do you want to keep these findings here? I have it after recommendations.
Sure. Keep it there.
Okay. Do you want to answer these questions? I did not have answers to them, or did you want to take some of these sections out? We kind of on the findings. We listed them as I didn't know if you all wanted to keep just a list. You want to make them bullets? What makes sense? I wanted.
really don't know.
Okay. Well. All right.
I think whatever is written here is what's written, and if we have something to add, we add it.
Okay. And then the only other section on page 10 was the summary and the closings. I think that's consistent with Carolyn's. We didn't have much there, except for, well, you do have stuff there, but it's not there. Financial analysis is needed, future implications for planning, community engagement. You have those there, but I didn't know if you wanted to cut and paste those. I don't know.
Starting to reach ending. Let me throw this wrench in it too. I do think that there has to be in this report, there has to be specific references, even more than already are here, about schools. You know, like we have a partial list of what won't change, but that what won't change is a longer list than that.
Then guess what? You need to go in Google Drive and put them in there.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the other piece is, you know, if we're worrying about transportation, are we talking about eliminating magnets? Are we talking about consolidating schools? We talked about consolidation. I'm not sure I see the consolidation reference in here.
Well, see, I think, and again, to
Grade
answer,
split, I don't know if grade split's here about middle schools.
we have that in there. I'm on my section. I kept the part in here about the reporting part, instructional model for middle schools on page 13.
Yeah,
You can go down to page 13 for me, Rob. Because that was what we received a report on. We received a report on middle school, so I left that in there. I think Jeremy did a great job with that. I took out the maps because I didn't know exactly which ones we wanted, but I thought that was really good to talk about the middle school analysis, what it would potentially look like, and then the programming analysis was in there too. Corridor alignment and school capacities. But I mean, we really did spend a significant amount of time looking at specific schools as a potential middle school, looking at schools for crowding and capacity issues, and what could we potentially do to not have to close a building, but to save that staff. That's how we got to middle schools. Again, we've also had conversations about that was too meaty, stay higher level. So I don't exactly know where we landed on that, but I do think we have had some specific conversations that I think should be captured in here.
Yeah.
But again,
I think Carolyn's right to avoid a lot of specificity. But I also think that some more specificity is here because, again, as part of the let's say this, there's two words I don't want to see anywhere. You know, closing and choice. I don't want to see a message that goes out to the public, you're gonna have less choice. Okay, and that's part of that messaging piece. Closing, you're not gonna see closing unless we're shutting down magnets, because we can't afford to have under-enrolled magnets, people being transported from here to Kingdom Come. There's that, but I think consolidation makes sense, and the proximity of some of our schools is less than a mile apart. And Jeremy talked about that several meetings ago, that you have a number of schools that are within a mile and a half of each other, or it's even within that mile piece. I mean, it's really weird. There's clusters of schools. So I think everything on the west side needs new attendance boundaries, and we address that. So I'm not sure where the specificity starts and ends. But I do want to, and I'll add that to things I don't think would change. Put in.
Okay.
So, and
Yes, ma'am.
I'm okay with the direction we're going, but my question is, so for Monday, we're going to hand them a document.
No, they're not getting anything on Monday.
Okay.
Thank God.
That was my
But
ask.
we're gonna update. What are we doing? Are we doing anything or not?
My ask was that we don't.
Okay.
The only thing I think I think it could be a very short board meeting looking at the agenda. You know, if we're not presenting.
You talking about Monday or
Jeez.
you're not talking about December 11th?
I'm talking about the 4th.
Oh, yeah, that'll be.
That could be short for the hour we were going to get just to be part of it. But we need that hour for other stuff anyway. But it would seem to me that somewhere next week they get the report. The only thing I would ever say about anything to Monday is that perhaps Kareem asks the board, you know, we're working on this report. It's hard and it's going to be exciting or whatever. But just maybe we ask them, what is it that you would like to see? What would help you, you know, and they can at least make it have a 10-minute, 12-minute, 15-minute discussion about what they're looking for.
I like
Okay.
that.
You
Great
know,
idea.
just that we know you don't know all that we've been doing, and we got extra money to do it, right? Like real.
Don't say that.
Yeah, I know.
That was a joke.
That's a joke. Everybody knows we don't get any money.
That was a joke.
So, but I think that's what I would have Kareem ask. What is it that you'd like to see?
What is your expectation?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And we have to ask the administration, even yet today, what is it that you need to see besides the fact that we are, that it's not just the three of us, but that there is an interest generally by the board in what are those priorities and what has to conceivably happen this next budget.
So maybe I can send an email out saying, hey, this is the question I'm going to ask you so we can move it along.
However you want to do it.
I'll send it out. Miss Phyllis, can you type up a question for me and send it? I'm going to send it to Miss Phyllis and send it to everybody anyway. Okay. All right. Well, it is 2:50. And we've gone through everything that we've gone through. I'm going to just tell you, I only feel like we've moved the needle slightly. I do feel like we've made some movement. We will be ready to the public's inquiry, but I do feel like we just feel like the gray hairs run on the top. Do you have any questions?
No, Karima.
She gave me that mom look.
No.
Board Member Bolton? Anything else left to say before we get out of here?
We add what we want to add so y'all can see it, and we worry about the presentation, and you're gonna ask questions on Monday, and we're gonna tell them we're not ready.
No, we're not. And maybe what we should do,
That's for sure.
well, no, but can we just take maybe 3 minutes and look at what we want the framework for our presentation to be?
That's a good thing. The presentation.
Yes, this is the presentation now, not the, so we're going to, I think you two first you, Eve, should give a historical perspective summation of how we got here. I mean, we're gonna give it to them in writing,
I
but I
don't want
just,
to do that.
why?
And I'm tired of telling the history of stuff. I'd like to share a couple of visionary things instead
Okay.
of
Well,
always.
we're not saying you can't.
I'm not saying, yeah, I'm not saying that that's all you're gonna
I'm
do.
saying
That's the
it's
first thing I'm gonna ask you to do. Well, I just,
action.
I think that I think it's important to summarize the history.
I'll do whatever you want me to.
I just think,
I
you know,
do think we better be very careful whenever we're doing any presentation.
okay,
This little stuff that the three of us do, just as our happenstance, just because it's who we are, that can't happen at the committee, at the board meeting.
okay, I'm gonna do our
You
chart.
might Fight.
Yeah, that's.
We're not
this
fighting.
bullshit Cannot,
Oh, it's a friendly fight.
cannot happen again.
It's not a fight. I
It's
don't
not
think
a
it's a
fight, but
fight.
people don't get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
We have to be united and have a clear, great clarity about what it is. So if that means fewer things that we can be clear about, that's great. I don't know. I just think,
Well,
I do think
Okay.
we try to assign certain things to
So
certain.
I'm just gonna start with our charge and what the charge was in April of 2022. And then I have down historical view. Do you not want to do a historical perspective?
I'll do.
And then, what do you want to do?
I don't know, you assign.
No, I'm not assigning anything because you're gonna come in and change it, making bullets.
Let her do the 5, 6, or 8 big
Okay,
things.
okay, so you're gonna talk about the recommendations and how the themes of the recommendations. Can we do that?
She's not gonna do the recommendations. She's gonna do the big themes.
Yeah, the themes, right? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna say ad hoc recommendations, theme recommendations. Ad hoc theme, and that's gonna be Carolyn. Now we can all, I'm not privy to one person just sticking in, like, you know, while you're presenting, just everybody can chime in, like you can chime in too, to explain. And then, so after the recommendations, how do you think you're gonna just do the themes? How do you all perceive we should do this?
Are the themes recommendation, those aren't the same things, are they?
Well, those are her red things that she's got right there.
That's the big themes.
Those are the big things.
The themes from the recommendation.
The
Like
recommend,
These are just her red, these are just these.
the way I would, yeah, I think the way I would categorize it is the big picture, the themes are highlighted in red. And they may be different, whatever, we can figure that out. What's in the consensus point about shaping and redesigning the very specific actions and things like that are more the recommendation. That's the way I see it.
Right, so you're doing the themes, you're not doing the recommendations.
As I understand it, yes.
Do you want to explain the recommendation? I have that down under
I think
RY.
we have to, I think in the presentation, more so than in, we have to justify why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
so
that has to be maybe the next thing.
yes, I have that down.
Why we are doing this, whether it's financial, whether it's equity, whether it's the fact that our neighborhood schools don't look like our neighborhoods.
I have that down as RY.
The why, so I
Okay.
think our why, and I think all three of us should.
I agree with you.
So
So
that shows unity about our justification and our motivation.
I have us all down for that RY. And then we can kind of figure out, are we looking at financial impact of it?
I think the next part is that this is what we need from the administration and what the administration needs from us, based upon whether or not we're getting some support from the board. And then it's the, you know, I think it's either the next steps or it's something like, these are also things where we didn't reach consensus, but we did talk about it. Here's things we'd like maybe the board to also think about, to consider. Because there's stuff to consider, and then that makes them feel like they, rightfully so, they have some ownership of this too. here's a list of 20 things to at least think about. Is it whatever? Considerations.
I'm writing this down. You called it considerations, okay. So I have RY, Kareen, Eve, Carolyn, what we need from admin, what admin needs from us, areas for the board to consider that perhaps we did not reach consensus on or consideration.
Yeah, I didn't have enough time to deal with it, or that it
Okay.
certainly was an auxiliary or ancillary, I should say,
Okay,
item that
And
came
then-
up.
after that, after the why, would you say,
Is there interest, board? Is this
just discussion?
board interest?
Well, they're gonna say yes, to a certain extent.
Is this an engaging presentation so that we're asking them and then we're taking notes
Sure.
to, okay.
Yeah.
So we're asking, but
At
then,
least our admin.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, like it's interactive, I guess is what I mean. Okay.
Yeah,
Interest
it's a
discussion.
Is it gonna be on board matters?
I don't know where he's putting it.
Yeah, okay.
Interest discussion of, I don't know. What do you think? It'll probably be published by then, by the 11th. But the report is different than the presentation, so maybe,
I think you choose maybe 10 slides that are very important. Not any
The
more than
boundary
that.
lines and that.
the corridor one,
Yeah.
on page,
Absolutely.
page 12.
Capacity piece. That was.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Or, yeah, which schools are in which quarter, that kind of stuff. Things that are visually interesting.
I'm looking here, Rob, on page 11, we've got one. Well, maybe we don't need the enrollment piece. I don't know. We'll figure out which ones we need.
You know what, that Fordham report, I know we don't want to share that, but about the lowest achieving schools or lowest whatever.
Yeah, I did
You've got
look that in
that
there.
Fordham saying close them or do some under enrolled and
Yeah.
lowest achieving. And certainly the superintendent doesn't follow that, but I do like that one chart.
Well,
The
we
very
can-
first chart in Fordham shows all the other urbans, and all the other urbans have lost population. And we are the only urban on that chart that shows growth. That has been our strategy,
And it says that in there, except
Yes.
Cincinnati.
you know?
Mhm.
Growth
I brought
is,
it.
that's part of our justification for doing. That's got us through these number of years after the FMP, because the FMP was as much devastation to our enrollment as COVID ever did, or more. But we bounced back because we focused on growth. That's what we're doing now. We're trying to figure out how we can.
So the only other thing I want to direct the committee to is look at under recommendations. We had a recommendation, our admin on page 7. I'm sorry, administration on page 7. And I want you to look at the last one and see if that is something that you want to also put. I just want to draw your attention to it since
Oh,
we're.
wait, this Clark,
Mm-hmm.
as a follow-up.
It's on page 7, Rob. I'm sorry.
I mean,
That's a cut and paste. Do you want, that's the recommendation for 24, 25. So
what is that? What does that mean? What's it mean?
East Side families would have the opportunity to apply to enroll in Clark. West Side families would have the opportunity to apply and enroll in Gamble. That's the recommendation that it be East-West split. Is that right?
So that's
Jeremy?
6 years old now.
Okay. then there was the concern of equity around there.
But that's 6 years old, but that's not what's really.
And that's not what's
Well, I
happening.
know, because we
See,
told them to do this.
I think this is a policy implication. I don't know,
Okay.
and I say that broadly when you say, okay, so I'm where Eve is in terms of what does this mean? I think this was something administration, I'm that a figure.
Mhm.
I think it's because of the conversations around over enrollment and the
Yes.
situations that have come. So that's why it's here. Now, what we do about it is a different story. And
Okay.
do we want to act on this separately from?
Is this recommendation that if you live on what is determined the
Each
east,
side.
You would go
you're
to Clark.
gonna go to Clark.
Correct.
If if you're west, you go to Gamble. That's
Correct.
the recommendation, period, over in Dunwoody, right?
Is
That
the
would
way
be-
I'm
I'm reading it that way, that's the
reading it that way.
recommendation.
Apologies, I'm hesitant to go too far because I believe that this was sent with the intent of it being on the agenda for Monday.
Yeah.
It is on the agenda
It
for
is.
Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm hesitant to go
But
in
don't
lieu
say
of the
that.
superintendent's, what she's
Okay.
going to speak to.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just gonna tell you, that was the decision of the board, not only the year but the 2 years before we bought Mercy. And it was not adhered to by the administration or enforced or implemented. And that's why
So-
we have this problem.
So then that should go under previous,
That's
a previous
Board
board.
decided, we spent millions to get Mercy so that we would have someplace, not just the old junior high like we had at first, because he said you wanted to be somewhat equivalent.
I'm just trying to figure out where to put it.
I know, but I don't
That's
even know
previous
whether
board.
we should be dealing with it because what is being asked of us that we respond to this directly so that administration can take action on it now, or is this
I
part
don't know.
of the overall? Jeremy, what is what the ask is?
I believe that there would be something to take action on immediately.
Monday,
Yeah.
and that's Monday. Okay. All right.
And you're
Well,
saying-
I think that's absolutely true because I've got, two at Parker Woods who are assuming and have been assuming since they've entered Parker Woods that they would be going to Gamble.
Yeah.
No matter if they wanted to go to Clark or not, that was too bad.
I
Okay.
agree.
I just
with
didn't
you.
know where to put
I
it.
know
I
you
just
did.
didn't know where to put it. So, we're gonna,
It's previous.
previous.
And we took heat for it, and then the minute there was heat, but let's also be honest about stuff too. Some people get to go to Hyde Park that don't live in Hyde Park.
Right.
There's people on the west side because they want to go to one particular school versus the other. There's 15-20% of the kids that are in the wrong building anyway because that's where they wanted to be. This is tough
There are
stuff.
also some perceptual things that create that split.
Absolutely.
Of course, but I just didn't know.
And I think, even if we make a decision on Monday about it, some people are gonna be upset.
Well,
Because
that's
they don't
too
want to
bad.
send their kids gamble, or they don't want to send their
Well,
kids,
we,
But we have to take a position and enforce it.
well, I think it's beyond that. I think if we take a position, then we need to be ensuring that there is equitable
Absolutely.
credentials on the other side
Absolutely.
and that there is equitable other stuff too. And if it's not there, then taking this position is easy, but we also have a cost that's associated with that too, because if it's not the same, then you can't tell people, okay, we made a decision about that 6 years ago, and then you have to choose something that's not equal.
Historically, and I think that might, I don't know if it's on that one sheet, but isn't there something in our historical piece that says if a parent, if we're restructuring and their kid is at a high performing school, they are not, and we're forcing them to go to a low performing school, that we
Yeah.
can't do that.
That grew out of the FMP.
Yes.
That indeed, when you're consolidating or you're changing or you're demanding whatever, I can remember when we passed it, and we're trying to see if it was, I think Jen has maybe said it's a action item or it's a resolution, I'm not sure, but I remember it was Melanie that was pushing that. That's when Eileen was here, even Susan, I think, was here, Susan Cranley, when all that was happening. And it was that we could not force a student to go to a lower performing school if they were already in a higher performing school.
Right.
For example, you know, you can't have somebody go to, I won't say.
No second school, but I just think it's not as simple as, hey, we need to enforce this policy.
It is,
That's all.
you're right.
It has bigger ramifications, because if Clark is over enrolled by, let's say, 137 people, and all of those people qualified to go to Gamble, I'm being extreme, you can't make them move
No.
according to our own policy. So therein lies the
I'm
problem.
not sure about which is lower.
Right.
2
right,
years
we don't know.
ago, Gamble was higher performing than
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, but well, as far as the
But no,
equity
but no,
standpoint.
that's part of this over enrollment, because of that agreement with Hyde Park. I think that's going to be discussed on Monday. I think I put that on some item. But that being the case, this is making the case as one of our recommendations, which is we need a third Montessori high school. And we do, preferably in the central core.
The other thing related to that specifically is looking at the policy implication around kids entering at 9th grade who have in the Montessori program that never had Montessori experience.
Well, that goes
And that
against our
happens.
policy.
Yeah,
Because our policy, if I recall correctly, our policy says that the kids that have been in Montessori, our system, then they have rights to get to the high school. And even those kids that are open enrollment or whatever, if they have Montessori in their background, they're somewhere in that pecking order too.
so I imagine all this will come up in Monday's discussion.
Okay, I know, Pat just shared that there is time for us on the agenda for the 4th. I'm also just sending an email saying, hey, we also need time on the 11th.
So what are we supposed to be prepared for on the 4th?
The question, that's the only thing that I'm thinking that we would need.
The question?
The question to the board that I'm gonna ask, what are they expecting?
Okay, so what we just outlined here, that's the presentation. Okay.
All right, I think we're done. It's 3:08. That's it. Have a great weekend, everybody.